Welcome to the Rent to Rent Success podcast, all about creating consistent cash flow, escaping the 9-to-5, and really living life on your terms. This is the only podcast entirely dedicated to helping you achieve rent to rent success. It's our place to inspire each other to believe bigger, to be bolder, and to be game changers for good. I'm Nicky Taylor, your guide on this exciting ride. Let's start up the engines and get ready to fly. Hello, hello, hello. It's Stephanie here, and welcome to this episode of the Rent to Rent Success podcast, number 11. And it's all about coronavirus. Is a rent to rent dead? What about the future of HMOs in general? Would you be crazy to get started right now? But before I start and delve into all that, I just want to take a few moments to thank you again for all of your reviews. There are so many now. And I especially want to thank Harry Hordle. Harry, in his review, said, "This one is for Monica," which is my mum. And I mentioned in a recent episode that mum is as excited about our reviews as we are. And so that was such a lovely thing for you to do, Harry. I don't know you, Harry, but I really do appreciate you. And I love the alliteration in your name. Whoa. That is next level, Harry Hordle. So this is what Harry said. He said, "Very brief and informative podcast explaining why rent to rent is an honest and legal way of property management for profit, an enjoyable and entertaining way to learn about property." So thanks so much, Harry. And if you're listening and you enjoyed the podcast, please do subscribe and also review. It really does mean the world to us. We read them all, and we're donating to our charities too for each review that we receive. Okay, let's dive into today's show. Today, as I say, we're talking about rent to rent, and coronavirus is now the right time to get started. What is the lowdown? I get asked this question a lot because we're in lockdown. We're overeating raw cashew nuts. We're binge scrolling photos of cute dash hounds. We're homeschooling. We're on furlough. We're working. We're worrying. So should you get started in rent to rent? If you're in financial distress and you just want to focus on keeping your head down and getting through all this, then I have to be honest with you. And the answer is no, now is not the right time to start. The other true answer, though, is yes. And I know if you're here listening that you're part of the 5% who want more than the 9-to-5. And maybe you've looked at your life and decided that enough's enough and that you want to get started to get your own consistent cash flow outside of your job, like I did. If you're on a furlough and you want to make the most of that time, if you're working but you're no longer commuting for hours and you want to make the most of that time, if you finally have some space and some time to think, then yes, it's the right time for you, because the truth is that every time brings more opportunity. So boom time brings opportunity, and slow down times bring opportunity too. In fact, slowdowns and recessions bring more opportunity. And I'll tell you why. It's because in a recession, there are fewer people looking for opportunities, and even fewer than that, people who are actually taking the opportunities. And right now, more landlords need you because they will be having problems. You have fewer competitors and you have more opportunity to negotiate a better deal. We're seeing lots of people in our Kickstarter program who are negotiating deals with landlords and agents now who previously hadn't shown any interest. And this is what it comes down to. You are there when other people are not. And that's what gives you the opportunities that other people do not have. You get to take on a property and have this initial period of choppier waters through the next few weeks. And then you have years of consistent cash flow afterwards. So instead of keeping focused only on the now and the challenges right now, we all need to raise our gaze to the future. This is for 5 years. So a few months of challenge is actually just a tiny bump.
Would you like to start your rent-to-rent business step by step with us? Book a rent-to-rent strategy session with Stephanie to find out more about the Kickstarter program and see whether it's right for you. Go to renttoRentSuccess.com/call. That's rentsuccess.com/call. It'll be great to speak to you about your goals and answer your questions and help you start your rent-to-rent success story.
So what can you do to get started? What can you do even in the lockdown situation? As I'm recording this, Boris has announced plans for us coming out of lockdown, but even so, at the moment, we're still restricted. So the things that you can do are you can start your business and put everything in place. You'll see in episode 9 what you need to have in place for a compliant business. You can start to build your relationships with landlords and agents by letter and by phone if you can't meet them in person. And you can get yourself in a position so that you are ready to go as soon as that door is opened. And knowing that people who would normally be your competitors are still asleep. Get started while others are sleeping. The question I then get is, but how can I tenant a property in lockdown? What if my tenants can't pay the rent? What if I can't pay my landlord? And in the next few episodes, I'm going to answer those questions. Right now, though, I want to talk to you about what's going to happen to the HMO market in general. And is now a good time to be getting into HMOs? And what about Article 4 and about HMO demand? Let's start with Article 4. Article 4 is coming in more places, and this causes people to be alarmed. Let me just quickly explain what Article 4 is. An Article 4 direction is where some local authorities have removed the permitted development rights, which allowed people to convert a property from C3, that's residential, to C4, which is HMO status. And what that means is that in those Article 4 areas, you require a planning application to be submitted to the local authority to change a single family house from residential to HMO for up to 6 people. Planning permission is and always has been required to convert a single family house into a large HMO with 7 or more unrelated people sharing. And that would change it from C3 dwelling house to sui generis. I've heard our students recently saying that some properties are on the HMO register and they don't have planning, so it's always wise to check. But now that we know what Article 4 is, it's that requirement to get planning permission to change a house into an HMO. So now that we know what that is, let's talk about it. Now, I'm going to say this slowly because this one causes confusion. Article 4 doesn't matter. It makes no difference to the rent-to-rent model we suggest. Our model is to work with properties which are already HMOs. And yes, you can still make money when you take on a property which isn't already an HMO, and I'll cover that in a future episode. So many people are saying, but Article 4, but nothing. Article 4 makes no difference. You can have a successful rent-to-rent business in an Article 4 area. In fact, we are in an Article 4 equivalent area, which means that any property with 3 or more people from separate households requires an HMO license and planning permission. So that's where we operate, and it works very well. So when you take on an existing HMO, they already have the HMO license, they already have the planning, they already have the safety requirements in place. Although I have heard students recently on our program saying that some properties on the HMO register don't have planning. So it's wise to check that. And this will likely be the case where the HMO has been in existence for a long time, for example, before the introduction of Article 4. And in these instances, the local authority will often continue to renew an HMO license without the planning. A new license application would require. Have you ever had the feeling of wanting more? I have. Raw cashew nuts, cute dash hound photos, and Susie Q all do it for me. And you're listening here. You're loving it. Okay, I'm guessing here. You want to take things to the next level? Okay, I'm an optimist. Come over and see us at rent2rentsuccess.com. That's rentsuccess.com, and get to see us in person. We've got a lot of juicy rent-to-rent goodness going on over there. Videos, blogs, free training and guides. I know you're going to love it. So check it out at rent2rentsuccess.com. Okay. So let's look now at demand for HMOs. Now that we've seen that Article 4 is fine, the fact that more Article 4 is coming in more places does not affect you, because you are dealing with existing HMOs. And what Article 4 does for you is it actually creates more demand for your products, because there are, nobody else can be turning, or fewer people can be turning a house into an HMO. So let's talk now about the future of HMOs and what's the demand for HMOs. It's predicted that we'll go into an economic downturn now. And there's debate about the extent and the length of the downturn, whether it will be a U, a V, or a W. But I haven't heard any commentators saying that we won't have one. So we're likely to go into a downturn. What does that mean for HMOs? An economic slowdown leads to increased demand for affordable shared accommodation in HMOs. And combined with the new restrictions on HMOs caused by more location being Article 4, it means that you're going to see greater demand for HMOs. In addition, times of recession also unfortunately lead to more relationship breakups, and many of the newly single will seek shared housing as a stepping stone while they're looking for somewhere longer term. So there's increased opportunity also for creative purchase opportunities. So following coronavirus, some HMO landlords will be looking to sell. And it's likely, if there's a slowdown, that the landlord won't be able to achieve the price that they want, as they will be more open to a lease option agreement or an exchange with delayed completion, where you can often offer them a slightly higher price than they could get by selling now, for terms but whereby you don't have to pay as much upfront. So a lot of people I speak to are very interested in lease options and exchange with delayed completion, because it's a way of actually buying the property with only a little money required upfront. And I think we're going to see more opportunity for that as we go into this slowdown. And if you'd like to listen to episode 3 called How to Buy Property with No Money Down, you can get it in your podcast app or by going to renttorentsuccess.com/3. That's renttorentsuccess.com/3. So for all the detail on how not just to rent property, but to buy it so that you can get the capital appreciation long term, as well as the cash flow short term. Let me summarize what we've talked about today. Now is a great time to get started in rent to rent because there's more opportunity for you to get a deal. There's more opportunity for you to get a deal at a lower rent. There's more opportunity for you to get that deal now at a time when demand for HMO rooms is increasing. And as a cherry on the top, the opportunity for creative deals is increasing, so you can start owning property too. But you're going to say to me, but how can I tenant my property in a lockdown? What if my tenants can't pay the rent? And what if I can't pay my landlord? And I got you. I'm going to tackle those over the next few episodes. So that's a wrap for today. Where do you stand on this yourself? Are you starting or are you sidelines? If you want to see how real people are dealing with coronavirus in their rent-to-rent businesses, join us for Rent-to-Rent Real Talk every Wednesday, 8 p.m. in our Rent-to-Rent Success Secrets Facebook group. Look forward to seeing you there. Until next week, have an amazing rest of the week. And remember, believe bigger, be bolder, be a game changer.
Thank you so much for listening. If you like the links for anything mentioned in today's episode, or if voice is not enough and you want to see us on video too, you can find all the show notes and lots more at renttorentsuccess.com. That's rent number 2, rentsuccess.com. If you've enjoyed today's episode, we'd super appreciate it if you would take a few minutes to review it in your podcast app. Remember, we'll be donating to our B1G1 charities too for each review you give. Until then, believe bigger, be bolder, be a game changer.